Good morning. My name is Marisa Berry Mendes. I'm a campaigner with Amnesty International Canada. I'll speak in both English and French. Je vais parler en anglais et en français. We're gathered on the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. Their presence here dates to time immemorial, and we respect and reaffirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island. Amnesty International Canada joins civil society, labour and grassroots partners and people with lived experience in the temporary foreign worker programs to call for justice for migrant workers in Canada, our neighbours and friends who feed us, build our homes, care for our loved ones, and more. Despite their enormous contributions to Canadian life and their inherent dignity and rights as people, migrant workers in Canada face discrimination, exploitation, and abuse in the workplace. As Amnesty International documented in our January 2025 report, the program's closed work permit requirement, which ties workers to a single employer and prevents them from freely changing jobs, creates a power imbalance that puts workers at heightened risk of abuse. For years, workers have been speaking out about abuse within the program. Unfortunately, tweaks to the program made over the years and recent calls to limit it to agricultural work are not aimed at addressing the root causes of abuse and exploitation. Depuis des années, les travailleuses et travailleurs migrants dénoncent les abus dans le programme. Malheureusement, les modifications apportées au programme au fil des ans et les récentes demandes visant à limiter au travail agricole ne s'attaquent pas aux causes profondes des abus et de l'exploitation des travailleurs et travailleuses migrants. Pour aggraver les choses, les commentaires des politiciens contre le programme comporte souvent une connotation raciste selon laquelle les travailleuses et travailleurs migrants voleraient les emplois des Canadiens. Non seulement cela ne tient pas compte de réalités économiques complexes, mais cela crée des tensions entre les travailleurs et travailleuses et compromet la sécurité des personnes immigrantes et racisées sur le lieu de travail et dans la rue. Making matters worse, politicians' attacks on the program often carry the racist implication that migrant workers are stealing Canadians' jobs. Not only does this ignore complex economic realities, it turns workers against each other and it jeopardizes the safety of immigrants and racialized people in their workplaces and in the street. Today, as we mark the launch of the National Days of Action for Migrant Worker Rights, you'll learn more about why Canada needs to act to protect migrant workers and how the government must move forward. Though we represent different perspectives, the speakers on stage here today are all united behind one message, that the government must urgently provide open work permits to all migrant workers in Canada, and that any reforms to or replacement of the temporary foreign worker program must be grounded in human rights. Merci, et je vais passer maintenant la parole à Bénédicte Carole qui se joint à nous virtuellement.
Alors bonjour, moi je suis Bénédicte Carole. Je travaille avec Amnesty, avec DTMF et je travaille aussi avec la CTI. Aujourd'hui, je viens particulièrement parler du travail avec permis fermé, le programme par lequel je suis venue et pour lequel je me bats corps et âme pour l'abolition. Et donc j'ai peut-être des séquelles même au niveau de la santé, tant que physique que psychologique actuellement. J'ai été esclave ici au Canada. J'ai été transformée en esclave moderne avec le programme de permis fermé dans le programme agricole. Je suis venue, mon employeur me faisait travailler en moyenne 100 heures par semaine, des fois plus, et 16 heures n'étaient pas payées. J'ai subi toute forme d'abus, que ce soit sexuel, que ce soit psychologique, que ce soit verbal. J'étais obligée de me taire pendant pratiquement 2 ans parce que j'avais peur d'être expulsée. Il avait promis de faire venir mes enfants. Au finish, j'ai perdu mon statut parce que je ne connaissais pas comment se passe le programme d'immigration ici. J'ai perdu mon statut. Je me suis retrouvée sans statut. J'ai bataillé dans toute forme de métier pour gagner ma vie dignement en participant en même temps à l'économie québécoise. Ce qui fait qu'aujourd'hui, je travaille dans le domaine de la santé où le manque de main-d'œuvre est éminent et où on voit beaucoup plus les immigrants qui sont encore avec des permis fermés et qui se font exploiter. Je raconte mon histoire aujourd'hui, pas pour de la pitié, mais pour la réalité, pour le bien-être non seulement des travailleurs vulnérables, mais pour aussi les citoyens québécois qui ont le droit à la vérité et qui ont le droit de choisir et non d'être mentis. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes doigtés du doigt comme nous volons les métiers des Québécois alors que nous venons faire les travaux que les Québécois ne parviennent pas à faire ou où il y a un manque de main-d'œuvre. Et les travailleurs immigrants avec permis fermé ne sont pas au courant de leurs droits, ils sont exploités, ils sont vulnérables à toute forme d'abus, surtout nous les femmes, nous sommes vulnérables à toute forme d'abus, encore que ce soit psychologique ou sexuel, sans compter beaucoup plus des abus physiques. Ils se font taper dessus, ils travaillent à des heures interminables sans être payés, ils n'ont pas le droit d'ouvrir la bouche parce que ils sont menacés d'être expulsés, ce qui était mon cas avec mon employeur pendant pratiquement 2 ans. À chaque fois que je voulais poser des questions, il me promettait que si j'essaye de poser encore plus de questions ou encore de lever la voix, il va m'expulser de mon pays. Sans compter que j'ai payé près de 20 000 $ pour venir travailler avec ce permis fermé en vendant tout ce que j'avais. Ils se font mentir dès nos pays d'origine. On nous fait croire que nous venons dans un pays de rêve où il y a des droits. On nous prend des énormes sommes. Nous sommes obligés de vendre tous nos biens pour venir ici avec des permis fermés alors que c'est un permis qui ne devrait pas être payé parce que nous venons renforcer la main-d'œuvre manquante au Canada. Et beaucoup des travailleurs à permis fermé se prennent des énormes sommes d'argent pendant la COVID. Beaucoup de travailleurs dans la santé se sont retrouvés en train de payer des 20 000 $, des 30 000 $. Et c'est des énormes sommes chez nous, ce qui font les 8 millions, les 9 millions pour venir travailler ici avec un permis fermé. Et puis ils arrivent, ils sont payés, ils travaillent à des heures interminables non payées et après ils se retrouvent en train de perdre leur statut. Notre combat avec DTMF, c'est pour dénoncer ces abus-là et pour amener le gouvernement à voter ou à établir un programme avec permis ouvert et avec un programme de régularisation pour des honnêtes personnes qui viennent travailler avec les permis fermés, pour qu'il n'y ait plus jamais ce genre d'abus ou ce genre d'esclavage au niveau du Canada. Merci.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gabriel. I am a former migrant farm worker. I'm really excited to be here. Why am I excited? Not because the honorable members of this house use the law to perpetuate injustice, but rather because I'm associated with people who see that by mobilizing, we can create a fair and a better Canada. I want to let you know that these honorable members in this honorable house, they've created laws that deny migrant workers basic human rights, that excludes us from protections, and that ties us to an employer. I want to tell you, I slept in it, I worked in it, I lived it, I breathed it, and I've dedicated my life to fighting for better conditions for migrant workers in Canada. During my experience as a migrant farm worker and up to now, the work that I do, the hardships that migrant workers face in Canada are very, very difficult. I slept in difficult living conditions. I worked in really difficult working conditions. And last year, we all know that the UN Rapporteur report described that arrangement that denies people, that excludes people, that ties them to an employer. It's tantamount to the breeding ground of contemporary forms of slavery. Is that new? Are we surprised? I am excited to be here because Canada has a culture of silence. Nobody says anything. And what the politicians, the honorable members here are telling me, they're confident to tell me, this is not an issue in Canada. This is not an issue. Why? We are so disconnected. I'm excited to let you know that the work that I did, the honorable members of this house, they call us essential work. The essential work that we do, we are very undervalued. The people that do essential work are not treated well. Do we have a confidence? Do we have confidence in a system where the people that are doing essential work are not treated fairly? Or isn't that peace of mind, knowing that our society is supported by people who are treated fairly? We all do better. We all do better when others are treated well. When we raise the floor, Canada does better. When the tides rise, all ships rise. And we are here to let you know that The conditions are difficult because of unjust laws, unjust policies that are founded, that are created and perpetuated right here in this institution. Where is the best place? Where is the best place to let our actions and our voices be heard than right here? We have the power to create a better world, and I want to thank all the members on this team to let Canadians know that there's power in your hands as a voter, as a consumer, so we can push the politicians to create a better world. Thank you.
My name is Zuha. I'm here representing Migrante Ottawa and Migrante Canada today. Migrante Canada promotes migrants' rights and dignity against all forms of discrimination, exploitation, and abuse in the workplace, in the community, and we resist all anti-migrant policies and assert the right to organize and strengthen unity among the Filipino diaspora. We rally their families and advocates towards upholding of migrant rights for jobs, fair wages, and due recognition. I'm here today because Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has called for the elimination of Canada's temporary foreign worker program, arguing that it takes jobs from Canadians who need them the most. At first glance, this may sound like a bold solution to protect local jobs, but let us be clear, scrapping the temporary foreign worker program without addressing the underlying issues will not solve anything. It will only deepen the exploitation of migrant workers while failing to improve the conditions of Canadian workers. The real problem is not the presence of migrant workers. It is this system that treats them as disposable. For decades, the temporary foreign worker program has created two-tiered workforce, one tier for citizens and permanent residents and another for migrants whose legal work and status is tied to a single employer. This oppressive structure gives employers enormous power and leaves workers vulnerable to violations of labor standards and protections, unsafe working conditions and living conditions, and even abuse. Many workers endure these conditions in silence, knowing that speaking out could only mean losing not only their job, but also their right to stay here in Canada. Poilievre's proposal misses the point. If employers are hiring migrant workers, it's not because migrants are stealing their jobs. It is because employers exploit the program to drive down wages and weaken labor standards. Eliminating the temporary foreign worker program without creating permanent rights-based pathways will not stop this exploitation, and it will only push workers underground. Big, significant, and essential part of the Canadian economy rely on migrant labor, especially in agriculture, food processing, and care work for elders and children, and construction. Poilievre himself admits this by carving out an exception for farm workers in his plan. But what migrant justice advocates and labor unions have long argued is that these workers must not be treated as second-class workers. If their labor is essential, and it is, then migrant workers deserve the same rights and protections as anyone else. The solution is straightforward. Canada must recognize the right to work as a fundamental human right. Migrant workers should not have their ability to earn a living be tied to a single employer or a temporary work permit. All workers, regardless of where they come from, must enjoy the same freedoms to change jobs, organize, join unions, and access workplace protections. This is not just about fairness in labor market. It is about dignity, equality, and community. It is the right to work, and it is also the right to live a free life, free from coercion, and free to speak up against abuse without the fear of deportation, and free to build a future with one's family. Canada needs to end its two-tiered system and stop treating its migrant workers as disposable. Canada needs to affirm migrants' rightful place in Canadian society as neighbors, co-workers, and community members.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Katia Lefebvre, je suis vice-présidente à la Confédération des syndicats nationaux. La CSN regroupe plus de 330 000 membres dans près de 2000 syndicats dans tous les secteurs d'activité au Québec et nous sommes fiers de représenter de nombreux travailleurs étrangers temporaires tant dans la santé, dans les garderies, les résidences pour aînés, les produits alimentaires, l'hôtellerie, l'industrie manufacturière, la foresterie et dans, en fait, l'ensemble des secteurs d'emploi au Québec. Ces personnes font tourner notre économie et nos services, mais sont dans une précarité qui est inacceptable. Le permis fermé, c'est une forme d'exploitation moderne. Il lie les travailleurs à un seul employeur, les prive de liberté et les expose à toutes sortes d'abus. Conditions de travail dangereuses, violation des droits syndicaux, non-respect des lois du travail et même des droits humains de base. Même syndiqués, ils ont peur de parler, d'aller à des réunions syndicales, de porter plainte ou de faire la grève parce qu'ils ont peur de se faire renvoyer dans leur pays. Donc, certains employeurs vont jusqu'à nier l'application de la convention collective tout en prélevant des cotisations syndicales. C'est honteux. Ce système arrange bien les employeurs qui veulent contourner la loi et sans syndicat, dans les milieux non syndiqués, c'est encore pire. Quand les conditions deviennent trop pourries pour travailler, les travailleurs doivent demander un permis de travailleur vulnérable et la procédure, elle est longue, complexe et elle est aussi très humiliante. La CSN considère que le permis fermé ne brime pas seulement le droit au travail, il fragilise la vie entière sur le plan économique, social, familial. Ça nuit au bien-être et à la dignité des travailleurs migrants. Quand une entreprise ferme, ces travailleurs perdent leur emploi, comme tout le monde, mais ils ne peuvent pas en trouver un autre facilement. Les employeurs n'ont aucune obligation de les aider et le gouvernement ne facilite pas la résidence permanente, l'accès à la résidence permanente, même après des années de travail ici. C'est le cas que vivent actuellement, tragiquement, une centaine de travailleurs de l'industrie New Rest à Montréal qui se sont fait licencier et qui ne reçoivent aucune aide adaptée à la situation. Ils vont devoir, pour la majorité, retourner dans leur pays, malgré qu'ils sont bien intégrés dans la région montréalaise. Au Canada, tout le monde peut changer d'emploi librement, qu'on soit citoyen, résident permanent, étudiant étranger, demandeur d'asile, conjoint de résident temporaire, tout le monde, sauf les travailleurs étrangers temporaires. Pourquoi? Ce permis ternit l'image du Québec et du Canada sur la scène internationale. Certains réclament l'abolition du PTET, mais sans expliquer pourquoi. En fait, ce qui dérange les employeurs, c'est surtout qu'avec ce programme, il faut demander des autorisations pour pouvoir recruter à l'étranger. Pourtant, c'est ça qui préserve notre marché de l'emploi puis le marché du travail au Canada. C'est donc pas le programme qu'il faut abolir, mais bien le permis fermé. La CSN exige donc du gouvernement fédéral l'abolition du permis fermé, un accès facilité à la résidence permanente, la régularisation des personnes sans statut. Pour la CSN, la lutte contre le travail précaire et les permis fermés est une lutte ouvrière essentielle. La CSN sera toujours aux côtés des travailleurs pour faire tomber ce système injuste. Merci.
Hello, everyone. My name is Santiago Escobar. I'm a national representative with the union UFCW Canada. UFCW Canada represents over 250,000 members, including thousands of temporary foreign workers. The people who sit, pick, pack, and process our food are not temporary to us. They are essential workers, they are our neighbors, and a part of our communities. But today, many are trapped by closed work permits. A closed permit ties a worker to one employer. Temporary foreign workers who are not unionized are afraid of speaking up about abuse, unsafe housing conditions, or unpaid wages. If they do, they risk losing their job, and this often leads to losing their home, their status, and their chance to stay in Canada. It also scares temporary foreign workers away from organizing and joining a union. And in Ontario, farm workers are still denied the right to join a union, increasing their vulnerability. It has been well documented over and over and over. This system makes exploitation predictable. The solution is clear. Open work permits and strong labor rights must go hand in hand. When workers have labor mobility and are represented by a union, working conditions improve across the industry. Our ask is simple and urgent. End closed work permits and adopt open work permits for all temporary foreign workers from day one. Renewable work permits with path to permanent residence for those who want it. The best example is the Agri-Food Pilot Program that was closed, and we are encouraging the federal government to make it permanent. Almost 5,000 food migrant workers have obtained residency thanks to this program, and is a good example as best practices. Canada can create a system that is both efficient and fair, with open work permits and strong labor protections. It's time to replace insecurity and abuse with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. My name is Gauri Sreenivasan. I am Co-Executive Director at the Canadian Council for Refugees. Today, you have heard extensive testimony about how Canada's Temporary Foreign Worker Program enables, indeed creates, the conditions for exploitation. What is unconscionable is that this information and this evidence has been available for decades. It has been consistently reported by workers in the program, as we heard today, and reinforced by human rights experts, by parliamentary committees and NGOs. And consistently, CCR and its members have stood with migrant workers to call for a range of legal and policy changes to overhaul the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, including barrier-free pathways to permanent residency for migrant workers, access to the services that they are denied despite paying into them with their taxes, and specifically for an end to closed work permits. And yet today and recently, governments from many parties have the audacity to blame temporary foreign workers for our economic woes, and yet offer none of the solutions that are in plain view. Les permis de travail fermés créent les conditions qui permettent aux employeurs d'en abuser. Nous l'avons entendu aujourd'hui. C'est bien documenté et cela doit cesser. C'est tout. Le gouvernement fédéral ignore les preuves en refusant d'accepter la nécessité d'un changement fondamental de ce système et des solutions claires. Le gouvernement fédéral doit remplacer les permis de travail fermés par les permis de travail ouverts et ouvrir des voies sans obstacle vers la résidence permanente pour les travailleurs migrants. The recent attacks on temporary foreign workers as a scapegoat for youth unemployment are deplorable. In Canada, in Quebec, we speak many languages, we come from many places, and across our differences, we look out for each other. This is true whether our families got here 100 years or 100 days ago. Migrant workers are important members of our communities and perform essential work in many industries, from putting food on our table to caring for our loved ones in hospitals and long-term care facilities. We reject these divide and conquer tactics that turn neighbor against neighbor, young person against young person, while letting workers endure endless abuse. We are proud to be a country that welcomes newcomers and treats workers fairly, and we expect our leaders to carry on that legacy and make this a place where workers' rights are respected and all families can thrive. Employer-specific work permits are a violation of workers' fundamental human rights to freely change employers, and they have consistently resulted in widespread abuse and mistreatment of workers, as you've heard today. It is long past time for the federal government to replace closed work permits with open work permits and to open pathways to permanent residency for migrant workers. Thank you, merci. We're open for questions.
Bonjour. J'aimerais savoir, donc demander l'annulation du permis de travail fermé, tous. J'aimerais savoir à quel point vous êtes écoutés sur la colline et par quel député ou quel parti vous écoute. Est-ce que vous avez eu des réunions? Parce que ce n'est pas la première fois que vous venez sur la colline. Alors, j'aimerais savoir si vous avez l'oreille de quelqu'un au fédéral.
Merci. Donc, en fait, vous avez raison. Ça fait des années qu'on demande pour ces changements et on n'a jamais eu un gouvernement qui était prêt à faire ces changements. Il y a définitivement des partis qui ont appuyé déjà cette demande, le Parti nouveau-démocrate, par exemple. Et il y avait aussi des instances importantes du Parlement, le Comité permanent de l'immigration, même daté de 2009, avait soumis des recommandations exactement comme cela, en recommandé qu'on ferme ces permis de travail fermés et de changer le programme. Donc ça, c'est un comité avec plusieurs députés de plusieurs partis. Donc, ce qu'on voit, c'est des ouvertures des partis individus ou des parlementaires qui écoutent et font des recommandations, mais jamais un gouvernement qui écoute ces preuves et fait les changements nécessaires. Donc, c'est pour cela qu'on est ici aux collines pour remettre en lumière ces demandes qui viennent des travailleurs et qui sont appuyés par des experts et des ONG et même l'expert des Nations Unies.
Puis en suivi, je vais le répéter en anglais après, mais est-ce que vous avez eu des rencontres avec des ministres, c'est surtout ça, comme comme Madame Metlej Diab à Immigration, ou Madame Haïdou, qui pourrait aider au niveau des...
Do you want to speak? Je peux faire ça.
Je peux juste dire qu'on a eu une rencontre avec le bureau de la ministre Haïdou. On attend avec impatience une réponse de la ministre Metlej Diab. Et peut-être pour rejoindre un peu ce que ma collègue avait dit par rapport à l'écoute, et aussi faire écho à ce qu'elle a dit, ça fait des années que la société civile, les travailleurs et travailleuses mènent ces enjeux-là. Il y a eu une certaine écoute dans le sens que le gouvernement a amené des changements, certains changements, certaines initiatives pour essayer de pallier aux abus, mais en fin des comptes, il s'agit de changements plutôt cosmétiques parce qu'on n'a jamais eu la vision pour vraiment faire les changements importants et s'attaquer aux racines du problème, le permis fermé, le statut précaire des travailleurs et travailleuses. Donc voilà, je dirais, il y a eu une écoute, les gens sont au courant, ils font des manœuvres, mais sans s'attaquer aux raisons profondes, l'exploitation va continuer.
Yeah, I'll just add to that we have had consistent meetings with the Department of Employment and Social Development, ESDC Canada. We have not met the minister. We have had no opening from a minister or the Prime Minister to make these changes, but we have written and asked for them several times. In the dialogue with the department, they have heard and received the critique of the closed work permit system, but they have been given explicit direction from the minister only to explore the question of moving to sectoral work permits. So that is the live policy discussion on the Hill today. Should we move from having sector-specific closed work permits to a closed work permit that would enable workers to stay within the sector? And I would invite my colleagues to comment on why we see that as a weakness. But when we raise with officials the critique of the sectoral work program, which still does not enable the freedom for the worker to choose an employer that suits their skills and that enables them to exit abusive situations, and that to keep them constrained in a sector still ties them in a way, essentially. And because of the cooperation between employers, information is exchanged and traded about workers. So you arrive from, for example, one agricultural employer to another, knowing that you've left them. So that doesn't give you the power to really choose a path for you that enables you to both have income and to have justice. So when we raised the point with senior officials at ESDC that the sectoral work permit does not answer the fundamental critique of the closed work permit, we are told that the only direction they have is to consider sectoral permits or this question about vulnerable work permits. So there has been no signal, to answer your question, yet that at the highest level, ministers are willing to think about that. In fact, recently, the Prime Minister's in the media saying, what I hear is that these workers are really, really important. I'm hearing repeatedly from industry and business that we need to consider the importance of this program, and we're looking at it. So we're here clearly to say there's been enough looking at it, and the solution is very clear.
Sorry, I didn't understand your question, but based on her response, I want to comment a little bit about sectoral work permits. Currently, the government, okay, first of all, the program we're talking about, that's a federal program. Workers across Canada. It's not a provincial issue, that's a federal issue, right? So that is why we're here. We need leadership on that issue. That is why we're here. It's a federal issue, that's one. Number two, currently the government is proposing sectoral work permits. What are the sectors? They're combining fishing. That's what they're proposing, to combine fishing and agriculture. Let us look at these two sectors. Not construction, not hotel, not anything, fishing and agriculture. These two sectors have no or little protections. So they're combining two devils together. But how they sell it to the public, and these are the comforting words of the politicians, that workers can move from one employer to the next. That sounds comforting. But where's the devil? In the details. These two sectors, agriculture, have no protections. So basically you're tying the workers to a wider pool of of exploiters. That's one. And this is the best gift the government has given employers. What's the best gift? To deny the workers, exclude them and tie them to the employer. Is that a great gift? On the other hand, I want to let you know, in the past, Canada has defended the rights of people. People from Europe, Canada told them, DDT, we will not deny you freedom. We will not deny you rights. We will not tie you to an employer. Did they give them a closed work permit to defend those rights, to prevent them from being exploited? No, these people were granted open work permits upon arrival. These people were granted status upon arrival. Canada have done that in the past. But the important thing is, we are very silent about it. We are very silent about it. And the politicians are really happy when we are silent about it. We want to be clear. We want to be clear that the people who are doing essential work are not treated well. Do we have confidence in the system of society where people are not treated well? Or don't we feel better? Isn't peace of mind knowing that our society is treating everybody well? And the other thing is, Canada is not a country. Canada is a standard. People look up to Canada. But our silence is perpetuating injustice. So we are here to raise the bar, to raise Canada to that rightful place, to its rightful position on the world stage.
Was there, go ahead?
Okay, no, okay.
Oh yeah, just to confirm, I think what my colleague may have been asking. Of course, the government are working on updating the levels program right now, which does include temporary residents. Were any of your groups invited to take part in those consultations at all, or did that just not happen this go around?
Consultation on what?
Immigration levels. So I would invite my colleagues from unions and the migrant workers to also comment. This year, there was very limited consultation on immigration levels. So what our members had access to was an online questionnaire with no engagement with officials. So it was very limited. Still, members from across the country have submitted their concerns. CCR has submitted recommendations about the immigration levels, but it was a very limited consultation process this year, if that's what you're asking. Do you have a...
Yes, as my colleague just said, it's just questionnaires online. This is pretty much the participation that we have taken part of. But it's also important to mention that for the first time 2 years ago, the seasonal agricultural workers program was implemented almost 60 years ago. And for the first time, workers have a voice at the table. So this is something that is important to bring to the conversation, the fact that the temporary foreign workers program and the seasonal agricultural workers program is decided between the federal government and the industry, but is missing the voice of the workers at the table.
Last one. So Zoa, you told briefly about what Mr. Poilievre said that foreign workers were stealing Canadians' jobs. So can you explain in detail why there are not?
Can you ask your question in French? She
Of
doesn't
course.
speak English.
Ok. J'ai demandé... C'est pour Zoa. But I can do that in French as well. J'ai juste demandé de commenter la déclaration de M. Poilievre qui disait que les Canadiens volent des jobs. Pas les Canadiens, excusez-moi. Les travailleurs temporaires étrangers volent des jobs au Canada.
Thank you for the question. I think what Migrante Canada and all the migrant workers want to emphasize is that migrant workers are not the enemy of the domestic workers here. Ultimately, we are all workers, and we have to be united in this issue, because when migrant workers' rights go down, we see that the power is concentrated with employers. And what we're trying to do is uplift workers. And we want to advocate that the issue is the two-tiered system that is being created because of status, because some people are being made exploitable and deportable because of their status, and that is the root of exploitation. We want to make sure that the issue of migrant workers is being highlighted, and that is in the exploitability, in the deportation, and it's the two-tiered system. And we need to actually talk about the root issues and the issues in our economy through through this lens of like who is actually being exploited and how do we uplift the workers. So we want to focus on like we need to be united on this issue. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Gabriel?
Yeah, good.
Yes, excuse me. Ben en fait, c'est un peu étrange de voir que maintenant, on accuse ces travailleurs-là de voler les emplois quand ils ont été aussi essentiels pendant la pandémie. Hein? Sans ces travailleurs-là, on aurait dû fermer des hôpitaux, on aurait dû fermer des abattoirs, on n'aurait pas pu ni se faire soigner, ni se nourrir. Alors, aujourd'hui, quand on dit ces travailleurs-là volent des emplois, c'est faux. Ils occupent des emplois qui étaient vacants et pour lesquels il n'y avait pas de main-d'œuvre. Actuellement, les règles qui changent au niveau fédéral ont des impacts importants. Entre autres, il y a des résidences pour personnes âgées qui vont devoir fermer des étages complets parce qu'on réduit le nombre de travailleurs. Si on ouvrait les permis, tous les travailleurs pourraient rester dans cette entreprise-là, qui est une résidence pour personnes âgées, et pourraient continuer à donner des services à la population. Mais comme on passe des règles sans prendre en compte les réels besoins de main-d'œuvre et aussi les réelles compétences des travailleurs, ben c'est difficile après ça de mettre les travailleurs et les entreprises ensemble, puis ça crée des trous dans certains secteurs d'activité où est-ce qu'on n'est pas capable de remplacer ces gens-là par de la main-d'œuvre qui sont ici. Ces travailleurs-là sont essentiels, ils participent à l'économie et on doit prendre en compte le fait que sans eux, ça serait très difficile, en tout cas pour la situation au Québec, on aurait de la difficulté à recevoir des soins, on aurait de la difficulté à se nourrir, on aurait de la difficulté à faire garder nos enfants. Il faut qu'on prenne en considération l'importance qu'ils ont au niveau social et économique pour la population canadienne.
Briefly, I would like to add to the conversation here that stealing, the word stealing is a very strong word. Every temporary worker who comes here, we have a work permit. We come for a work permit, permission to work. How do we get permission to work? There's an LMIA. There's a process. The government approves that. And with the LMIA, the employer have to prove that they cannot get a Canadian to do the work. That's fundamental. So where does the word stealing comes in? That's one. Recently, even international students, they were allowed to work 40, 45, 40 hours because there was a demand. The economy was doing well, busy. But what is happening? Right now, the government is putting more money into, they call it defense, more money into defense. Why not social programs to create a busy, a buoyant economy? So it's the government is funding things that are not supporting a busy and a buoyant economy, rather than put it in elsewhere, and that is the problem. So to distract the public, who best to blame? The people who don't have a voice, migrant workers. So that's distracting the public rather than addressing the issue where the why cut social programs and put it into other things that are not creating a busy and a buoyant economy. Beautiful, yeah.
Okay, people on Zoom, if you have any question, please use the raise hand function. Les gens sur Zoom qui veulent poser une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la main levée. One more time on Zoom, if you have any question, please use the raise hand function. Thank you. Okay, there's no question on Zoom, so this will conclude the press conference. Thank you. Merci.